Disclaimer: everything that is discussed, posted is strictly for educational and historical purposes only. It does not promote, nor condone illegal activities. Smith and Walton Tootsie Roll. Red Williams had come over for one of his regular visits to talk bulldogs and relax. All of our visits together turned out to be too much fun. John Lakey and his son-in-law Buzz Smith invited us to on Sunday to look at their dogs and have a roast beef dinner. Those who know me know that very few roast beef dinners have escaped from me in my lifetime. Even so, I told Red I really didn't want to drive to It was over 2 hours each way and the only scenery was a barren Indian reservation. After reminding me that by Sunday I might be real hungry, Red convinced me to go. As we walked in the front door, I was sure glad we had come. John's wife was loading the table with beef, potatoes and gravy, vegetables, rolls, pie and cake. After she sat us down, she told us to enjoy ourselves, and she left for the day. I thought at the time that she was the perfect woman, a great cook who knew when to disappear. It was one of the most memorable meals of my life. After we ate, Buzz showed us some pictures of his dogs. One grabbed our attention. The dog in the picture was dead. It looked like a butcher had separated both shoulders and stifles with a cleaver. Asked Buzz what happened, and he said an old bitch he had got off the chain and killed it. Red and I looked at each other and tried to act calm. We suggested we go out and take a look at the dogs. John and Buzz showed us the yard. They had about 10 or 12 real good-looking dogs. Most were of Peterbilt and Hannah Patch breeding from David Smith and Max Coates. We casually asked about the killing dog. Buzz showed us a 4-year-old brindle bitch with a long dish face named Tootsie Roll. He told us she was heavy carver bred, that her great-grandmother was C.H. Butcher Boy's mother. We asked Buzz if it might be possible to roll her. He told us that if we had something her weight, he would. She looked to be about 40 to 42 pounds. Buckshot had a bad stifle bitch off his preacher dog at that weight. We called him and he said he'd do it as long as Tootsie wasn't an ounce over 42 pounds. She was a bit heavier off the chain, so we had our hopes dashed. We spent the rest of the day talking dogs and finally headed home. Red and I talked about Tootsie all the way back and the 2 hours seemed to fly. 3 or 4 months later Buzz called and said the mine had closed, his wife had left him and he couldn't keep his dogs. He said he would give me any or all of them. I told him I didn't have room for them all, but if he would bring me Tootsie, I'd try her, and match her, and give him $500 if she won. He brought her down the next day. I called Red and told him the good news. He sat up a roll with Dwight S. and a rough Heinzel bitch he had. Red came back over and Buckshot came to take a look. Tootsie hit the bitch in the throat within 5 minutes. She had a hematoma the size of a grapefruit on the right side of her throat. Red asked me to stop it at 10 min, as it was obvious the bitch wouldn't last much longer. I asked Red to find something over his way at 42 pounds. The match was made into a boomerang ex-hog bitch named Hannah. As I was getting ready for the match I just knew Tootsie would murder it. I sure got a surprise. They met in the center of the pit and went mouth to mouth. Blood was pouring and at 20 minutes, Tootsie was getting the worst of it. I got a little worried when I realized I'd never seen Tootsie scratch. At the 35 minutes mark Tootsie got in the right stifle and it blew up as big as a tennis ball. She then bit the left stifle and it did the same. Hannah quit cold and Tootsie ran a hard courtesy scratch. Red and I spent many hours discussing how an easy one sure turned hard. Sent Buzz the $500. A few months later, Buckshot and I rolled Tootsie and found where she really wanted to go. Deep in the kidneys and found a home. She was whipping the dog and Buckshot gave her some help with his Gerber. We scratched Tootsie into the dog a half dozen times and let her work the kidneys. For Tootsie's second, I matched her into J.B. Click's Samantha. They told me she had stopped 9 dogs in matches and rolls. Red came over and P. Browning refereed. It turned into another tough night. Samantha was slinging Tootsie all over the pit. At 40 minutes, Buckshot was betting against Tootsie. I was surprised and asked him why. He told me Tootsie was outgunned and couldn't win. But as soon as Tootsie got to the kidneys it was all over. She was in hold for 20 minutes and the blood was ballooning up under the skin. Samantha turned and was counted out at 1 hour 9 minutes. She was gone before she got out of the driveway. Red, Buckshot and I sat around and talked for a while. I couldn't understand why Tootsie was taking such a beating before she turned on and took them out. Buckshot suggested that the next time I matched her, to let her bite a dog on the way to the pit, so she would get angry. For Tootsie's championship, I traveled again. We went into Brian's Kaluha, a beautiful black Hammond's bitch, who had won 1 in 1 hour 40 minutes. On the way to the pit, Red held up a bitch for Tootsie and they grabbed each other. It must have done the trick because Tootsie went straight to the kidneys. At the 10 minutes mark, Calho was fading fast. I asked Brian to pick her up. He refused, but Tootsie stayed in the kidneys. He picked her up at 25 minutes and she made a crawling courtesy scratch, but she never made it home. I flew home with Tootsie Roll. Tootsie was now 6 years old and had only been in heat once. I didn't have much hope of ever getting pups from her. I did breed her to Sorrel's hard-eyes and GRCH Badger. I heard from the boys who ended up with some of the hard-eyes pups they were good rough ones. I later traveled to Pennsylvania to look at a GRCH Badger XCH Tootsie bitch that my kids named Large Marge. She's one of the best I've ever seen, intense, deep game and a real punisher in the back end. Marge has since went on to win her championship. I still have 2 daughters off Tootsie, and lots of granddaughters and grandsons. All of the grandchildren I've tried so far look real good. Tootsie died at Red's place of cancer when she was 10 years old. I am sure glad she passed my way. I owe it all to Red for talking me into a great roast beef dinner. When I think of Tootsie, I remember talking with All Brown when I was about 15 years old, just getting started in bulldogs. Told All I was having trouble finding a good one. All said to be patient and I'd have my share. But All, where are they? I asked Bobby. He said a good one is where you find it, Bobby Smith. Well, there you have it, folks, the story of Smith and Walton's Tootsie Roll 3XW.